An adult is pouring and drinking milk without a second thought, which seems ordinary.
Biologically, drinking milk as an adult is one of the strangest things a mammal has ever done.
All mammals lose the ability to digest milk after infancy. This includes dogs, cats, whales, and chimpanzees. Mammals stop producing the enzyme that processes lactose once weaned. There's no reason to keep producing it. A specific group of humans carries a genetic mutation, appearing only a few thousand years ago. For most of human history, drinking milk as an adult was never considered normal. It was, and still is, a biological accident that changed the trajectory of entire civilizations. This simple liquid altered the human genome, impacted public health, built empires, and became a controversial drink. Milk's origin story begins long before farms, agriculture, or any concept of domesticating animals. For thousands of years, the human-mammal relationship was simple. We hunted them, and they ran away. Sometimes humans succeeded in hunting, but sometimes the animals won, and lives were lost. Approaching a wild aurochs, a massive ancestor of modern cattle, to milk it would have been suicidal. Aurochs were not gentle farm animals. They were aggressive, territorial, fast, and built like armored trucks. No one was milking. But around 12,000 years ago, things changed in the Fertile Crescent region. The Fertile Crescent stretched from Iraq to Israel. The last ice age was ending. Temperatures rose, glaciers retreated, and grasslands expanded. Nomadic hunter-gatherers began settling near reliable water sources. They began planting seeds and storing grain. Slowly, over generations, they started capturing and breeding wild animals. They selected smaller, calmer animals, easier to manage. Goats were likely first domesticated around 10,000 BCE. Goats were small, reproduced quickly. Sheep followed. Later, cattle, bred from aurochs, became manageable for farmers. Animals were kept for meat, hides, and tools. Milk wasn't on the agenda. Adult humans couldn't digest it. Drinking raw milk caused severe digestive distress. Adults lacked the enzyme to process lactose past childhood. After weaning, milk digestion ceased permanently. Thus, milk was a waste product for adults.
Milk was only useful for infants. This was about to change, but not as expected.
Around 7000 BCE, humans in the Fertile Crescent discovered something that would reshape their relationship with animals. Leaving milk in a warm clay pot allowed bacteria to break down lactose into lactic acid. The milk thickened and soured, creating a tangy, protein-rich yogurt that lactose-intolerant adults could eat. Adding rennet from a calf's stomach, applying heat and pressure, and draining whey created cheese. Primitive cheese, especially harder and aged varieties, contained very little lactose. Archaeologists found milk fat residue in pottery fragments from Turkey, Eastern Europe, and Africa.
These fragments date back nearly 9,000 years, showing ancient people processed milk into cheese.
Ancient people processed milk into forms their bodies could handle. Cheese was not a gourmet treat. A harvested animal provides sustenance once. A live, nurtured animal gives food daily for years. Herds sustained families during lean times. Dairy animals were renewable food sources, giving communities a survival edge. Fermentation was a clever workaround. The real shift, altering the human genome itself, was still to come. An unexpected turn. Around 7,500 years ago, a genetic accident occurred in a newborn north of the Fertile Crescent. A single-point mutation near the LCT gene on chromosome 2 created an extraordinary tiny change. The mutation kept the body producing lactase, allowing milk digestion into adulthood. It wasn't supposed to happen. Mammals stop lactase production after weaning. But this individual could drink raw milk without digestive issues. This individual could drink fresh milk in large quantities without discomfort. Usually, such a random mutation would mean nothing. Most mutations disappear, offering no advantage. But this one appeared at exactly the right time and place. These communities kept dairy animals. The mutated individual gained access to a dense, reliable, year-round food source.
This was crucial during droughts when wells dried, or brutal winters when food ran low.
During famine, the person who could drink milk directly, without processing, had an enormous survival advantage. They were better nourished and recovered faster. Their children were healthier and likely inherited the mutation. This seemingly small decision was not. Natural selection rapidly amplified the mutation. Lactase persistence spread through populations faster than almost any other human adaptation, rivaling malaria resistance. It became a defining characteristic in a few thousand years. The spread followed the herds, not randomly. Around 5,000 years ago, nomads on the Pontic steppe began a consequential migration in human history. The Yamnaya were dairy people. They kept large cattle herds, drank milk, and many carried the lactase persistence mutation. The Yamnaya were mobile, aggressive, and advanced. They domesticated horses, built carts, and needed new pasture land constantly. Around 3000 BCE, they expanded into Europe and Central Asia, bringing their cattle, culture, language, and genes. Genetic studies show the Yamnaya contribution to modern European genetics is massive, rewriting prehistory. Yamnaya ancestry accounts for 50% in Northern Europe. Neolithic farmers were absorbed and genetically reshaped. They brought milk. The global map of lactase tolerance now makes sense, with patterns telling the story. Northern Europeans, descendants of Yamnaya, herded cattle through cold winters. They have the highest rates of lactose tolerance. In Scandinavia, Netherlands, and British Isles, 90 to 95% of adults can digest milk without problems. Move south to Mediterranean Europe, where farming was grain-based, and rates dropped to around 50 to 60%. This wasn't about culture or choice, it was genetics. Populations herding dairy animals evolved to consume their product. Populations relying on other crops never needed to evolve. Lactose intolerance is the original human default setting. Lactase tolerance is the mutation. We don't think of it that way. Yamnaya weren't the only ones to discover this trick. Functionally equivalent mutations for lactase persistence evolved independently in at least 5 different human populations. Pastoral groups in East Africa developed their own lactase persistence, tied to their cattle herding traditions. Arabian populations developed another variant. Each mutation was distinct, meaning these groups evolved it independently. Evolution invented the same solution to the same problem in different places and times through random accidents. Biologists call this convergent evolution, a powerful testament to milk's value as a food source. This happened independently on at least 3 continents. After Yamnaya expansion and dairy culture rise, things seemed settled. Dairy communities flourished. Milk products became essential to daily life, religion, and economy. This stability did not last. Ancient Sumerians in Mesopotamia, an early civilization, left clay tablets detailing dairy production. Temple records from 4000 BCE list milk, butter, and cheese. Dairy was wealth, currency, and sacred. Sumerian art shows milking cows. Some believe specific cattle breeds were kept for milk yield, not meat. Ancient Egyptian tomb paintings clearly depict milking scenes, showing farmers milking cows while calves stand nearby. Milk and cheese were placed in Egyptian tombs as offerings, meant to sustain the dead in the afterlife. The cheese survived 3,000 years, preserving bacteria traces. Dairy played a critical role in building empires. Nomadic armies were a dairy-powered force. Soldiers, led by their legendary leader, survived primarily on fermented mare's milk. Sumerian art shows milking cows. Some believe specific cattle breeds were kept for milk yield, not meat. Dairy logistics gave Mongol cavalry unmatched speed. They didn't need supply trains. Their food rode alongside them. Military genius or terrifying, milk remained a fundamentally local product for thousands of years across ancient civilizations. You milked the animal. You drank or processed it. The animal and consumer were close. The supply chain was simple.
Then came the Industrial Revolution. Milk went from safest rural food to most dangerous in cities. Factory jobs drew millions to unsanitary cities. New dwellers wanted milk for children but had no cows or pastures.
Rural farms couldn't meet urban milk demand. A horrifying new industry, distillery dairies, filled the gap.
Whiskey distilleries produced huge amounts of swill. Owners fed this waste to cows penned next to their distilleries.
Cows were packed in dark, unventilated spaces, standing in waste, eating slop. Many developed ulcers, infections. The milk was thin, pale, contaminated. Producers added chalk, plaster, flour, and molasses to make it saleable. Adulterated swill milk was sold door to door. In 1850s New York, infant mortality reached staggering levels.
Thousands of children died from summer complaint, a diagnosis covering infections and severe dehydration.
Almost all of these infant deaths were caused by contaminated milk from distillery dairies.
Journalist Frank Leslie launched a landmark investigation in 1858.
Leslie's newspaper exposed nightmare conditions: diseased cows, filthy workers, and children dying from contaminated milk. Milk was one of the most dangerous consumer products in the 19th century. Giving a child unprocessed milk in 1860 was risky. The breakthrough came from an unlikely direction. Louis Pasteur, a French chemist, studying fermentation in the 1860s. Pasteur discovered heating liquids to 60 degrees Celsius killed harmful bacteria without destroying the liquid's character.
This process, pasteurization, developed for wine, was immediately applicable to milk.
Pasteurization adoption was slow. Producers fought it. Some physicians opposed it, believing heat destroyed vital raw milk nutrients. Others didn't accept germ theory, still controversial in medical circles. Resistance came from every direction.
A visionary philanthropist and prominent department store owner saved many children's lives.
In 1893, after children died from contaminated milk, Strauss funded pasteurized milk depots at his own expense.
Clean depots in poor neighborhoods sold affordable, pasteurized milk. He opened 18 depots in New York and funded others. Infant mortality near Strauss's depots dropped dramatically. Data was undeniable. Clean milk saved lives, dirty milk killed. Strauss's advocacy pushed the conversation forward. By 1915, major American cities enacted mandatory pasteurization laws.
By 1920, pasteurization became the legal standard. Milk transformed from dangerous local product into safe industrial commodity.
Milk was shipped hundreds of miles, stored and sold at enormous scale. The modern dairy industry was born in one generation. By mid-20th century, milk was inseparable from American identity. School lunch programs included mandatory milk cartons.
Government campaigns promoted dairy as essential. Milk ads saturated media. The dairy industry became heavily subsidized.
Backed by federal price supports and marketing boards, dairy thrived. Then came 1993 and the iconic Got Milk campaign. The Got Milk campaign, by Goodby Silverstein and Partners, became one of advertising's most recognizable slogans.
Celebrities appeared in ads with milk mustaches. The simple message blanketed every media channel.
Milk was essential, building strong bones and health. But the science was more complicated than ads suggested. Things stopped being simple. Recent studies found the dairy-bone health relationship wasn't as straightforward as the industry claimed for decades. Harvard's study found no link between milk and reduced bone fractures. High dairy consumption countries reported high osteoporosis.
The dairy industry's simple, milk is healthy story didn't survive scientific scrutiny. Lactose intolerance reshaped the conversation.
65% of adults worldwide cannot digest lactose. In East Asian countries, this figure exceeds 90%. In Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America, rates are high. For most adults, milk means cramping, gas, bloating. The Western assumption that milk is a universal health food was a projection, not a biological truth for humanity. The rise of plant-based milk alternatives in the 2000s reflected and accelerated this shift. Almond, oat, coconut, cashew, and other milk varieties flooded grocery store shelves. Niche products became mainstream, driven by health, environment, and cultural tastes. The dairy industry fought back. Advocacy groups worked to influence how plant-based products were labeled, claiming consumer confusion. Food authorities debated the issue. A 2017 EU ruling banned plant-based companies from using dairy terms like milk, butter, and cheese.
The legal battle over what counted as milk became a multi-billion-dollar war fought globally.
Milk is a 10,000-year experiment in co-evolution between humans and the animals they domesticated.
Adult milk consumption was never a given. It was genetically earned over generations by populations staking their survival on animals.
Milk is a living record of human evolution. Every glass echoes a genetic accident in an ancient pastoral community.
An accident arriving at the right moment, place, and people, snowballing into one of the fastest evolutionary adaptations. This adaptation is one of the most far-reaching in the entire 300,000-year history of our species. Yamnaya herders, riding west 5,000 years ago, couldn't imagine descendants building trillion-dollar industries around milk. These moments connect across 10,000 years. Humanity took milk, overcame genetic limits, and rebuilt civilizations around this choice.